Draft officially 3 weeks away. Cody, I think it's time for you and I to dive into our own mock drafts. We have a 7-round mock draft, but for today, we will get into the top 2 picks in the first round.
And to tie it all in, we want to develop a great team here that we can deliver wins to the city of Houston. We want to deliver a championship here to the city of Houston, and that's what it'll be about.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Saturday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. I'm John, some sports guy here, but of course, I'm joined by none other than Cody Davis, Texas Credential Media member, Sports Illustrated's own, also covers the Houston Rockets. Got a checklist. That's all of the things that Cody does on the everyday basis. And make sure you guys are subscribed to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube under the name Locked On Texans, along with all of the major podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Megaphone, and Spotify. Didn't get an opportunity to get a show out to you guys for Friday, but it's Saturday in the city of Houston right now. It's kind of rained in. It seems like from the past couple of days. So if you're in the house, this is the perfect time to go ahead and go to the Pro Football Mock Draft Simulator. A lot of you guys have already started to do it. This was one of my favorite parts of the year, where people can go crazy with their draft picks. Thank God we are not a part of the Texan front office. By the way, I think a lot of us probably would have did better in 2000. What was that, when we traded DeAndre Hopkins?
Any time Bill O'Brien and that regime,
we probably would have did a much better job than that group.
What is that, for like 4 or 5 years outside of trading up for Deshaun? And in hindsight, that's probably was a mistake too.
Man, listen, I do know the draft where we selected Ross Blacklock with the 40th overall pick, a player who I wish would have panned out for the city of Houston in this franchise. But for today, Cody and I are going to go ahead and dive into our top 2 picks. As you guys know, the Houston Texans sit at 2-12 in this upcoming draft in a couple of weeks. Cody, if you don't mind, I'm going to start off and my pick. And by the way, I do want to shout out John Crumpler, one of your colleagues, our colleagues from the Texan Wire, does great work for the Texan Wire. So for the past couple of months, Cody, who's been my personal QB1?
CJ
Stroud. And for so long, Bryce Young. And by the way, guys, I am a fan of Bryce Young. Don't get it twisted. However, I like CJ Stroud simply because I believe he brings the arm strength. I believe that he has the accuracy above all things. And I believe he is a player that can hurt you from the pocket. And I was able to see it check off a question mark by CJ Stroud against Georgia whenever he had the opportunity to use his legs. And so with my number 2 overall pick, Cody, would you mind? With the number 2 overall pick, Houston Texans select CJ Stroud, quarterback, Ohio State. And isn't a big difference, I don't think so, between CJ and Bryce. I don't think so. I think the height is a difference. I think the gameplay isn't a big difference, right? And when I look at CJ, as I already alluded to, he does some things on the football field that I absolutely love. And why do I love it? Well, when I look at specifically how he fits into the Houston Texans game plan. Laramie Tunsil, Titus Howard, now Shaq Mason. Everybody, including myself, is expecting Kenyon Green to take that step up. And with him getting a full offseason, I think that will be the case. I don't like the receivers right now for the Houston Texans. Granted, I do believe that they have some playmakers in the draft that Houston can draft late, and I can't wait to address the number 12 overall pick. But I like Stroud because of his pinpoint accuracy. He has the better arm strength out of the top two quarterbacks. This is not included Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. And I love what he brings as a prospect and a player and a person to this franchise. Now, for those of you that are worried about who he is represented by, Bryce Young is also represented by Athletes First. The Houston Texans, I believe, also have coaches on his coaching staff represented by Athletes First. And we do have a bitter taste in our mouth from the last time Athletes First in Houston had to go through contract negotiations, but that was business in terms of the player. Listen, I think behind CJ Stroud, this franchise could turn it around within 2 seasons and possibly compete for the AFC South Championship this season. I think he's that good of a quarterback, and this is coming from a guy who has historically not believed in Ohio State quarterbacks since Troy Smith. And so I think that with the number 12 overall pick, we are hearing Frank Wright and Carolina kind of play their own media games, and Bryce Young may be the number 1 quarterback for them. If that's the case, the easiest decision in the world, Cody and listeners and viewers out there, is to draft CJ Stroud at number 2.
Yes, sir. And on my end, and by the way, John and myself, we did our own separate mock drafts, and I had a bit of a roller coaster type of fun with my draft, with my mock draft. Don't ask me why, but I traded the number 2 overall pick and packaged it with the 104th pick to the Arizona Cardinals, who called me up first.
I like that.
I was about to make my pick.
I like that.
You know, Arizona calls me up. Now, I don't know why they called me up, but let me tell you what I got in return. I got the number 3 overall pick, the number 34th overall pick, the number 66 overall pick, and the 2024 second round pick. Ladies and gentlemen, I tried my hardest to thank Nick Caserio. I went into this mock draft saying, if I want to try to replicate what Nick Caserio could possibly do in the next couple of weeks, I got to do some wheeling and dealing. And there is no way in hell Nick Caserio is turning down this package. So, with the number 3 pick of the 2023 NFL draft, the Houston Texans select CJ. Plain and simple. Of course, you know, I could not afford to not make that trade because, first of all, the package was just that big. And of course, for you guys to know, with the number 2 overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals went ahead and selected Will Anderson from Alabama. Number 1 overall to the Carolina Panthers, of course, was Bryce Young. John, of course, I picked CJ. I'm not about to repeat everything that you just said about CJ because our draft analysis about him is 100% the same. You say you can see him turning things around for the Houston Texans in 2 years. I'm going to say I could see him coming in and changing this organization from day one. And I'm not just saying by, you know, getting this team to the playoffs. I'm just saying in general, going back to having a franchise that's going to put a very competent, a very good, and a very quality starting quarterback out there on that field. And the one thing that I always go back to, regardless of how bad the Texans look over the last 2 seasons, a lot of times when we came on this show and we did our recaps, one of the biggest issues we always talked about was the inabilities at quarterback. You replace Davis Mills, Tyrod Taylor, Kyle Allen, and Jeff Driscoll with CJ. I guarantee you a lot of those 1-score losses that we came here and talked a lot about will go in the Houston Texans' favor. And I know this first year is going to be a learning experience for CJ, but just the overall play, the overall competitiveness, you know.
He's a quarterback you can get behind.
Yeah, he's a quarterback.
He's a quarterback you can get behind.
And we are hearing all of these things after the top 30 visit that he held in Houston this week. Like a lot of people just talking about the poise, the demeanor that he has. And that's what you want out of your quarterback. So, of course, the first pick for the Houston Texans, very easy. In the next couple of weeks, whether it's CJ, whether it's Bryce, everyone is going to be happy that you finally have a potential franchise quarterback. But John, once again, I couldn't pass up saying on that trade package.
No.
Man. I know Caserio and D'Amico Ryans won't say no.
If you know they are trading up one spot to get the guy that's going to be available the spot after, Hey, you know what?
And I use the same mock draft simulator. I just want to throw that out there. This isn't Madden or nothing.
Make the trade. You definitely make the trade. I can't wait to continue to talk about our mock draft guys from the things I was able to do. I had a couple of mock drafts, but there was one that I thought I was able to hit on positions Houston need and able to hit on those positions in later rounds. So I love one of my mock drafts. A lot of them I did one where I traded. And then I got Anthony Richardson for the 4th overall pick, but then I got like a bunch of picks back. And so I'm going to stick to the one that I think is more realistic to what Houston draft board is going to look like. So I can't wait to talk about the number 12th overall pick more on the show. And the NBA playoffs are almost here. Now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even allows you to combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same-game parlays. Don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers out there in the YouTube world. Matter of fact, if you're not in the YouTube world, make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube. Cody, we're going to talk about our mock drafts later next week. We got some guys on here. I can't wait for you to go through your list. As a matter of fact, if you wouldn't mind, I'm just going to run down the names and then get back to number 12. So I'm going to start with 33 and then go down because I want to leave number 12 a little bit open. At 33, I don't know how it happened, but Nolan Smith landed at the Houston Texans. Yeah, he was there. I went ahead and got Nolan Smith at 33. At 65, I went and got cornerback Julius Brents out of Kansas State. Now, for a lot of you guys worrying about the center position, at 73, Joe Tippmann out of Wisconsin. 104, this is a guy that I think, because of our new head coach and his background and how he's been able to help our linebackers, I would love to see him take a chance on this young man. Servassier Dennis, the linebacker out of Pittsburgh. At 161, Raheem Jarrett out of Maryland, wide receiver out of Maryland. 188. Now, this is a player, when I watch this film, I think of a mixture in between Honey Badger and taking over for Desmond King, who was on a one-year deal, has one more year left on his deal, excuse me. This is Jay Ward, the safety out of LSU. And I like his game. And when I continue with my draft at 201, Dante Stills, the D tackle. 203, Deuce Vaughn. I got Deuce Vaughn at 203. At 230, edge rusher Nick Herbig out of Wisconsin. And at 259, I got the Georgia quarterback Stetson Bennett.
Oh, wow.
At 259, you can't beat that. But at the number 12 overall pick, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I like Nico Collins. I like John Mechie. I was watching some John Mechie highlights the other day. I think I said this on a earlier show in the week. I think John Mechie is going to be phenomenal. I like the idea of what Robert Woods can do in a more suitable offense, but none of that moves me. But the guy I got at number 12, he's going to move y'all. As a matter of fact, let's go through the process. Cody, with the number 12 overall pick, the Houston Texans select Jackson Smith-Njigba, wide receiver out of Ohio State. I think he is the best wide receiver in this class, ladies and gentlemen. I think that if he would have came out last year, he possibly would have been the best wide receiver in that class. I think he is an athlete and a wide receiver that you're going to get a mixture of Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. The way he can run routes. He's not a blazer. He's not going to beat you with speed. He's going to beat you with technician. He's going to beat you being able to get to the spot that he needs to be at, quicker and faster and just better than you are. And I think he is a wide receiver that Houston needs. He's a young wide receiver that can come in and do. I think he will be an 1,000-yard receiver. Not necessarily sure, but I think his impact on this offense will allow others to take a step in their game. And so I really would love the idea of a Smith and Jigma next to Nico Collins, right? The bigger receiver that can be your possession and your red zone threat. I really love the idea of him learning ins and outs from not Noah Brown, but I do like Noah Brown, from Robert Woods, right? And so then you match up in the past 3 years, two of some of the most explosive wide receivers in Smith and Jigma and John Mechie. I think that'd be great for the offense. And plus, I was able to see the impact that Jamar Chase was able to have playing with his quarterback that he played with. That if he's available at 12, for me, it's a no-brainer. Go out there and invest in your offense like Houston has been able to invest in their defense through free agency. Do it through the draft for your offense.
John, I really do like that pick of Jackson. And you know me, I've been saying it a lot. I think my favorite pick when you take a look at what the Houston Texans are working with as to this point, it might be the number 12 pick because there's just so many possibilities and scenarios they can go with. And throughout this whole entire draft process, I have been really big on the Houston Texans drafting one of the top tier wide receivers. You were big on Jackson. I'm big on Quentin Johnston, the big body wide receiver from TCU. However, I went into this draft trying to replicate the potential mindset of a Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans. And throughout this process, I started thinking about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Remember in 2021, they used their first overall pick to get Trevor Lawrence. And then last year, they used their number 1 overall pick to get Walker to boost and have a foundational piece they can build around on the defensive side of the ball. And that's why I went with the number 12 pick. And without further ado, number 12 pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Nolan Smith, edge out of Georgia. I went that route because I figured if you already have your franchise quarterback, you need a good defensive-minded player on the defensive side of the ball that you can build around. And by the way, they definitely need to upgrade their front four, their front seven. They definitely need to upgrade their edge position. I love Nolan Smith. This is a guy who can get after the quarterback. He finished his college career with 12 and a half sacks. However, I do believe that he could have recorded more sacks if he wasn't playing alongside the likes of Trayvon Walker and Jalen Carter. I mean, in 2021, Smith recorded a career high 4.5 to 5 sacks, if I'm not mistaken. But between Walker and Carter, they recorded it for a combined of 16. And then not only that, you also got one of the best run stoppers in this year's draft. Last year alone, according to Pro Football Focus, this is a guy who averaged a 82.4 run defensive grade. John, I would be okay if with the number 12 overall pick, D'Amico Ryans say, you know what? I need to go get a foundational piece that I can build around on that defensive side of the ball, which, by the way, Nolan Smith, D'Amico Ryans, I think this will be the perfect marriage.
Wow. I hope we don't get in trouble for saying this, but that's some big balls on you right now. Because, wow. And the thing is, I think, so let me tell you why I like that, because your mindset going into this was, I'm going to try to do what I think they would do.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't necessarily say that maybe it would be Nolan Smith, but I do think we need to be prepared for Nick and D'Amico to say, hey, you know what? We like this guy, right? We like a guy, and he's available at this pick. We don't want to jeopardize waiting. And so I look at 12, between 12 and 33. That's a perfect example. They may like a guy at 12 and they don't want to risk losing him out on 33. If their draft board say he may be available at 33, but we know NFL guys talk and they don't want to lose out on that. So that could be a move that you look and say, whoo, if that's who they really like, They gotta go get it. Listen, okay, that's with the number 12 overall pick.
I started thinking about the possibility of them waiting until like pick number 33 to go after one of the top tier receivers when we started hearing rumors that Jalen Carter is falling down the draft boards. And on my mock draft, he went to number 10. He went to Philadelphia with the number 10 pick. So that is something I'm definitely going to keep my eye on. People are, playing around with the idea, whether or not the Houston Texans will go out and draft Carter if he falls to 12. Some people don't think he's going to fall that low, but as right now, nobody knows. But I wouldn't be surprised if that is a route that D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio goes.
All right. Thanks for making Locked On Texans your first listen every day. Make your second listen Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes. From free agency to the draft, salary cap management, and much more, join NFL experts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino as they take you through what it's like to build a successful NFL franchise every Monday through Friday. Find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we close out today's show, first and foremost, shout out to all of the subscribers out there in the YouTube world, man. From our hearts to y'all, thank y'all, man. A lot of love, and y'all show us love. We want to show y'all love. We're going to continue to do so with the YouTube comments. Let's go on the streets. My man, in the life of Kobe, this was a couple of days ago, man. He said this was actually the Houston Texans host QB CJ Stroud for Top 30 Visit Pod. He said, stop making it difficult. Get your franchise at 2, plain and simple. Can I just say something really quick, Cody?
Go ahead.
Because I know you are more of the calm one of us, too. Why are people making this hard? Why is this decision difficult for people? You just sat through 2.5 seasons of Davis Mills, a couple of games of Tyrod Taylor, Jeff Driscoll, and Kyle Allen for a couple of games. Why is this difficult for people? Why would you risk out on the top 2 quarterbacks? All because, and I really do think the Texan fans have PTSD.
Of course. Of course.
And it's real. But you got an opportunity to either get Bryce Young and you boost it up to the offensive line in the interior with Shaq Mason, so that'll help him out, or CJ Stroud. Even with CJ Stroud, he's a bigger quarterback. He can also go out there and win you some games. I'm shaking the computer right now because I'm shaking in my boots. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the discourse. I'm tired of hearing about, well, they should probably trade back, and then because these guys aren't really good quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett won games for the Pittsburgh Steelers last year, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? Kenny Pickett. And if you are really ready to risk another year of Davis Mills as your starting quarterback after what we were able to see, then by God, help your soul, and I see you where it's probably hot. Ain't no temperature. Let me tell you something. Just stop it. Stop it. Stop the madness. Cody, I'm going to let you address it if you want to. I'm just tired.
Look, I don't have nothing to say. All I know is that as a Texan fan base, people have PTSD. There has been several times over the last 20, 21 years now where you think it will be an easy decision. You would think it would be an easy fix. You would think it will be the smart opportunity, the smart anything for this organization to do, and they go the complete opposite direction. And ladies and gentlemen, as a reporter who over the last couple of years had an opportunity to be inside NRG Stadium to meet people within the organization, I know there was a lot of names that has been going in and out. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, this is a new regime. This is a new day. Take an opportunity to just breathe and trust this regime. It is not the same.
You say breathe. I'm going to say this. One of my favorite stand-ups of all time is Jamie Foxx, straight out of the Foxhole. And in that stand-up, he said, sometimes life just get crazy. You know what you got to do? You got to blow that out. Blow the pain out. I'm not encouraging, but I'm saying with breathing, blow out the PTSD that you guys have. Let's keep on going. The next one is we better not 2006 this draft. Cody?
Once again, They had an opportunity. You talking about a clear indication to draft a potential franchise, or at least not even a franchise quarterback if you don't want to go that far. You had an opportunity to draft a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback in Vince Young, and they didn't. Mario Williams with the number 1 overall pick. And I understand it. I get it, John, and I don't want to take too long on this because you know how I feel. There are certain moments in sports I would never let go, and this is one of them. But if Vince Young was in the city of Houston, his career would have been a complete 180, in my opinion. And I think the latter half of the 2000s, the early part of the 2010s, where the Houston Texans put together their best collection of talent with D'Amico Ryans on the field and Andre Johnson in his prime, the Texans would have been a hell of a lot better. And there's no disrespect to Matt Schaub because he did his thing, but Matt Schaub was not on the level of a potential of what Vince Young could have done. Once again, this is the reason why so many people in the city of Houston have PTSD with this organization.
They don't trust it. They don't trust it. Or it's like Stockholm syndrome. All Mike, before we get out of here, we're going to stick with the quarterbacks. He said this was on a podcast, how the Houston Texans compare and contrast QB prospect CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. On that podcast, I kind of mentioned the difference in between Bryce Young kind of playing with a lot of the, no disrespect, but no name-ish, a lot of young receivers this year, not the John Mechis of the world, Jameson Williams. When you look at what the Ohio State receiving group had, they had weapons all over the field. And so All Might is his name on YouTube. He mentioned nobody said anything about Joe Burrow having Jefferson or Chase, and they're the best 2 wide receivers in the NFL. You are absolutely right. And with that being said, this is why I believe that, especially if you go CJ Stroud, invest in your quarterback from day one with the number 12 overall pick. He's coming from a system that was very QB to wide receiver friendly. Why not try to, at the very least, replicate that success from the collegiate level to the NFL? So I will say that what Houston has on this roster right now in the wide receiver room isn't enough, and invested in the quarterback through the draft is a priority of mine. Quarterback, wide receiver, edge, DN.
John, let me ask you this question. Would you be okay if the Texans were to trade back into the top 10 to get Jackson Smith-Njigba? And I only say that because I highly doubt he would still be there at number 12, especially with Chicago. I believe they have the 9th pick. And I mean, once again, I don't think they play with each other, but there's still Ohio State prospect and another Ohio State prospect. And of course, the guy I'm talking about is my guy, Justin Fields. But would you think that would be a good move for the Texans to trade back into that top 10? That's if they go with CJ. And
that would be a move, like I just said. If D'Amico and Nick sit there and say, we really like this guy and we got an opportunity to get him, we just got to, make our mind up and figure out how we want to get him.
Yeah.
Giving up the number 12th overall pick, probably the number 33 overall pick.
Yeah, probably will take that as well.
If that's what they believe, right?
But then you got to think, because whether they pick at 12 or 33, now you're looking at a risk where they might give up an opportunity to get a true foundational piece for that D line.
Right. Man, I feel like thank God I'm not a general manager.
Me too. I'm like
even on the My GM Sportsbook, the game that we play, even on that, it's like, whoo, thank God these are not real decisions. Like I can build a franchise and I can close my phone and I can go to bed. I build a franchise in real life and we go out there and start the season 0-8. I'm just not going to bed. I may, I'm gonna have to blow it out, but that's a tough decision, a tough question. I think that if he is available at 12, you take him. Plain and simple. Thank you guys for checking out today's episode, Saturday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Hey, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texans. And of course, take those same 2 thumbs, scroll over to YouTube and subscribe to the Locked On Texans page on YouTube as well.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, CotyDavis _24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen.
You better blow that out.